In this realm, the existence of what they call witches is a reality. These individuals wield unimaginable abilities and have been branded as the embodiment of malevolence. Our main character, Yang, a contemporary engineer, finds himself transported into the form of a medieval prince. His mission, to blend modern industrial technology with arcane powers and erect a mighty kingdom. Within these walls, he encounters a coven of witches who capture his attention. The tale commences with Yang sensing a beckoning presence, a gentle tap on his shoulder, and a soft voice whispering, "Awaken, Your Highness. Your Highness, wake up." He gradually opens his eyes, a haze of confusion enveloping him, his whereabouts unknown. Seated upon a frigid metallic chair, he gazes upon an unfamiliar landscape, adorned with quaint wooden and brick abodes. A congregation of individuals stands united, engaged in an enigmatic incantation that eludes his grasp. Fragments of memory intertwine within his mind. Abruptly, he inhabits the vessel of Roland Wimbledon, the fourth prince of the Grey Castle Kingdom, an introduction to the impending struggle for the throne. On the opposite spectrum, decrees orchestrated by Roland's father bear the purpose of determining the throne's heir. All 5 of his progeny are entrusted with specific responsibilities, dispatched to 5 distinct domains, their capacities to govern scrutinized over the span of 5 years. The ultimate selection of the successor lies with the father. Henceforth, our reference to Yang will shift to Roland. Swiftly, Roland comprehends that this is no real-time strategy game. Fairness doesn't play a part, for the initial conditions vary amongst all participants. The narrative proceeds to provide a fleeting glimpse of the 4 other princes and princesses. The first prince wields unparalleled martial prowess, albeit a bit of a simpleton. The second prince is affluent to the extreme, yet harboring a duplicitous nature. The third princess commands both military might and authoritative qualities, fierce in her demeanor. As we approach the youngest princess, she stands as a paragon of intelligence, beauty, and reticence. And finally, our central figure, Roland, takes the stage. Roland, the 4th in line for the throne, fritters away his days in the embrace of revelry and hedonism, displaying an almost flirtatious dalliance with the concept of mortality. His assignment to this remote border town couldn't be more disheartening, a locale so neglected that even a bird would shun it as a latrine. An underdeveloped enclave, sparsely populated, languishing in destitution, where refuse is disposed of with unsettling casualness. Roland's instinctive response is to shield his head, an acknowledgement of the woeful circumstances he now finds himself entangled within. Yet, before his contemplations can conclude, a gathering of aged gentlemen, their visages adorned with a silvered crown of hair, impel Roland toward the commencement of an execution. A swift perusal of the surroundings reveals a throng of onlookers congregated in the heart of the square, every gaze converging upon a singular focal point, the gallows, an instrument of medieval justice, meting out its grim finality to transgressors. Adorning the gallows is a hemp rope, its course tethered to an individual garbed in a drab grey shirt, wrists bound in the back, her form marked by a modest elevation of the chest, cascade of blonde locks, and a delicate, almost fragile frame. The unmistakable impression emerges, a female, shivering in the face of the gusting wind. In the crucible of Roland's mind, he lambastes such a spectacle, unable to reconcile the bewildering absurdity of this spectacle. The words, "Release that witch," erupt from Roland's lips, a clarion call that reverberates through the air, jolting his minister, his sentinels, and the very residents into a state of shock-induced paralysis. Seeking to downplay his outburst, Roland feigns fatigue and proposes a deferment of the execution to a more opportune day. In the midst of this stratagem, Roland's chief knight, the formidable Carter, steps forth with a plea to halt the course of the execution. Carter cites the confirmed identification of the accused as a witch, rationalizing her imminent demise as a preventive measure against potential sorceress reinforcements. Observing Carter, Roland's thoughts brim with sardonic incredulity, a knight whose arm dwarfs an average person's torso, trembling in the presence of diminutive damsels, a paradoxical spectacle of magnitude versus timidity. Leaving the assembly behind, Roland strides away, a proclamation escaping his lips, the notion of attracting additional witches as a ploy to amass a comprehensive capture, a declaration void of elucidation or elaboration. Returning to his weathered castle, Roland withdrew into its confines, securing the door behind him. Amidst this solitude, he found the opportunity to unravel the bewildering circumstances enveloping him. The suspicion stirred that his demise had been precipitated by an unremitting toil, his essence transposed into an enigmatic realm. Gradually, Roland wrestled down the trepidation inherent in traversing uncharted territories, embracing his newfound identity as Roland. The determination took root to embark on an exploration of this world's intricacies. Subsequent to this, Roland and his stalwart compatriot, Carter, the chief knight, embarked on a measured descent down the staircase. Their destination, the depths of the border town's incarcerative quarters. Carter maintained an unceasing refrain of caution concerning the peril of encountering a witch, a refrain that Roland summarily dismissed with a playful retort. How could his chief knight, a paragon of martial prowess, be daunted by the presence of a mere girl? In due course, the depths of the prison were reached, a claustrophobic cell manifesting behind a lattice of unyielding metal. Nestled within its confines was a young woman, her form huddled in a corner, draped in the same threadbare, lackluster grey garb, her wrists ensnared in captivity. As she rose to her feet, her gaze affixed upon Roland, he found himself suffused with a telltale flush, captivated by her ethereal beauty. Her eyes, a tranquil azure akin to still waters, betrayed no trace of apprehension, ire, or enmity. Roland extended an invitation, beseeching her to approach for a closer scrutiny, a proposition promptly countered by Carter, who interposed himself protectively, cautioning against undue proximity and reiterating the inherent menace attributed to a witch. With a placating gesture, Roland soothed Carter's apprehensions, prompting him to abate his defensive stance. Addressing the young woman, Roland sought to unravel the enigma of her circumstances. With a voice imbued with both vulnerability and resolve, she introduced herself as Anna, her tale entwined with a father ensnared within the bowels of a mine that had succumbed to calamity. Her narration laid bare the opportunistic larceny enacted by a fellow miner, who purloined her father's possessions in the wake of the disaster. The flames raged with such fervor that they rendered the metallic bars into liquid tendrils, flowing like molten rivers. Swiftly, Carter positioned himself as a bulwark before Roland, an emblem of safeguarding against potential harm. Roland's gaze bore witness to this extraordinary metamorphosis, the rigid bars succumbing to the alchemy of heat, transforming into pliable forms. Before him, the very essence of the witch's formidable capabilities was unveiled, a revelation that cast a brilliant light on the palpable fear they evoked. As the flames subsided, Anna sprung into action. A conflagration erupted, devouring the restraining rope that bound her, liberating her hands from captivity. Purposefully, she advanced toward Roland, every step a proclamation of her dominion over the elements. The flames that had surged mere moments ago now vanished, leaving in their wake a diaphanous shroud of steam and the lingering essence of molten alloys. Roland's certainty crystallized, the arcane force of magic, the stuff of legends, was undeniably real in this realm. His heart held no trace of trepidation, rather, it pulsed with exhilaration born of envisioning the limitless possibilities inherent in this mystical power. The potential for steam engines, refined steel, cast iron, and the crafting of modern tools blossomed as a tapestry of opportunities within his mind. Yet Anna's gaze bore a subtler urgency. Her voice articulated the culmination of Roland's curiosity, beseeching his determination. The moment hung suspended in gravity, the image of the young woman, both resilient and fragile, poised against the backdrop of Roland's intentions. Without hesitation, he relinquished his jacket, draping it across Anna's form, the gesture imbued with a profound meaning. With his hands extended and confidence unwavering, he vocalized his intent. A resolute decision had taken root within him. He would harness Anna's extraordinary talents. This unexpected encounter had unfurled a novel path. As Roland contemplated Anna's mastery, his thoughts converged upon the principles of the second law of thermodynamics, an inexorable directive dictating the escalation of entropy within an isolated system. In a cascade of contemplation, the interplay of magical energies and scientific principles forged connections, bridging a chasm that had once seemed insurmountable. In this realm, where the threads of magic are woven into reality, solutions to seemingly insurmountable issues can be conjured with ease. This marvel even rivals the perpetual motion machine's creation. The minister was taken aback upon hearing Roland's proposition. He was contemplating enlisting the aid of a witch. Rather than offering an immediate explanation, Roland urged the minister to draft an employment contract. Additionally, he directed the minister to secure a dwelling for Anna once she departed from her confinement. Having returned to his abode, Roland found the minister unwavering in his attempts to dissuade him from the perilous path involving witches. Roland promptly interjected, asserting that he does not perceive witches as malevolent entities or monstrous beings. He voiced, "We lack funds, an army, and possessions. To stand on equal footing with his kin, he requires the assistance of witches. Society must shed its preconceptions about them." The minister stood flabbergasted by the eloquence of Roland's discourse. Subsequently, Roland entreated the minister to facilitate a meeting with Anna. Meanwhile, Anna was attended to by a pair of handmaids. Following her ablutions, a maid unveiled an ensemble for Anna to try on. Although somewhat hesitant at the sight of the peculiar attire, Anna opted to don it. Beyond the threshold, a maid guided Anna towards Roland. Observing a makeshift workshop, Roland and Carter contemplated the structure where Anna would hone her metallurgical craft. In due time, Anna arrived. At the sight of Anna adorned in her newfound attire, Roland found himself captivated. Anna's cascading, silken hair, her ethereal complexion, and the delicate allure that graced her form left an indelible impression upon him. Reflecting on his decision, Roland mused that standard labor's garb was mundane, while the drapery of a magician was unwieldy. He surmised that the maid's uniform suited Anna perfectly. Quizzing the reason behind his uncommon kindness, Roland addressed the torment Anna endured due to her identity as a witch. Extending his hand once more, he affirmed his disbelief in baseless prejudices. Placing his trust in Anna's potential, he conveyed his unwavering belief in her abilities, a spark igniting in his eyes. As Anna's palm met Roland's, their connection solidified. Pledging to aid Roland and master her innate powers, she resolved to conquer the challenges ahead. Inside the wooden enclosure, steam enveloped the air as they focused intently, their breaths heavy. Practicing control over her abilities, Anna's attempts were met with failures until flames erupted from her feet, enveloping her frame. In a sudden burst, control faltered, leaving her attire charred by the flames. Abruptly, a resounding knock echoed, accompanied by Carter and the minister hastening toward the workshop. Their report disclosed the sighting of traces left by otherworldly creatures. A shroud of shock descended upon everyone present. An air of concern lingered, even affecting Anna, yet this left Roland puzzled. From here on, let's refer to the minister as Barkov. Candidly, he swung the door open and presented a report to Roland, sharing news about the impending month of the demon. Roland took a moment to reflect, gradually piecing together the phrase's significance, though still grappling with confusion. His gaze shifted towards Anna, whose apprehension painted a clear picture of the gravity of the situation. Barkov then delved into an explanation. The month of the demon materializes during winter, following the first snowfall. It's a time when the sun's radiance diminishes, and the gates linking to hell within the mountain swing open. Regrettably, the border town lacks the means to stand against this event. Consequently, its inhabitants must seek refuge at the closest stronghold, which, in this scenario, is the Chengdu stronghold. Barkov also offered reassurance, affirming that Roland's safety was of paramount concern. Intrigued, Roland probed whether Barkov had ever glimpsed the gate of hell. Barkov's candid response indicated that it's an unattainable sight for the average person. The formidably towering Longji Mountain is an insurmountable obstacle, tainted by a malevolent aura capable of inducing madness and unconsciousness. A momentary pause ensued, during which Roland encouraged Barkov to proceed. Barkov's gaze shifted towards Anna, and he unveiled an unsettling truth: only witches can perceive the gate of hell due to their existing infection. The revelation unsettled Roland, yet he persevered, inquiring about the demonic beasts. Considering this was Barkov's maiden visit to the border town, demonic beasts remained beyond his direct experience. Nevertheless, he managed to address most of Roland's queries after gathering foundational information. Roland's thoughts began to take shape. The annual necessity for migration would hinder the town's growth. Reflecting on Chengdu stronghold's defense against demonic beasts and the potential for their defeat, Roland wondered why the border town couldn't achieve the same. Nervous beads of sweat formed on Barkov's brow as he honestly divulged that, unlike Chengdu stronghold, they lacked towering walls and a contingent of elite soldiers. Guided by Duke Ryan's wisdom, Roland's brow furrowed, a subtle smirk forming as he finally grasped the border town's fundamental purpose, a beacon to alert the stronghold. For Roland to foster the border town's development, he realized he had to lay down roots there. Overcoming obstacles was possible, yet retaining people was crucial. He instructed Barkov to muster all local guards, hunters, and farmers, outlining certain prerequisites. Priority was to be given to those who'd resided there for over 5 years, with a preference for those acquainted with the month of the demon or past encounters with demonic beasts. Having issued these instructions, Roland pressed onward. Ambling through the serene garden behind them, Roland and Anna relished a delectable dessert. The exquisite cake was a first for Anna, and she savored each morsel with a deliberate reverence. Amid this flavorful indulgence, Roland guided the conversation toward a weightier subject. His curiosity piqued, he encouraged Anna to delve into the intricacies of the month of the demon, a subject that furrowed her brow as she hesitantly embarked on sharing her experiences. In the midst of this challenging period, common folk like Anna and her father grappled with a formidable trial. They embarked on a journey toward the stronghold, their yearly harvest in tow, a barter for much-needed sustenance and precious gold. The stronghold responded with a makeshift refuge, accommodating the influx of migrants. The length of this demon-touched month exhibited variance, stretching up to 4 months in some cases. Yet, officials within the stronghold underscored that their harvest sufficed for only 3 months, a grim consequence of scarcity. The harsh reality often took a darker turn, oppressing the more vulnerable members of society. Food became a precious commodity cruelly confiscated, hastening the demise of those already in precarious states. Moved by Anna's narrative, Roland's empathy grew. Just as he was about to speak, Anna's voice interjected, revealing her father's steadfast guardianship during those trying days. An unspoken sentiment lingered in the silence that followed. Later, Anna's voice softened as she mentioned 25 gold, alluding to the bounty placed on disclosing witches. This disclosure unveiled her father's simple yearning for survival. In response, a surge of fury coursed through Roland. His palm struck the table, and with resolve, he assured Anna that such injustices would never repeat themselves within the confines of the border town. With measured determination, he headed toward his office, beckoning Barkov and 3 companions to join him. Standing there, Barkov was flanked by this trio. Among them were 2 guards, entrusted with patrolling and overseeing the fire beacon, a crucial communication system alerting neighboring strongholds of imminent demonic beast threats. The third was a local hunter, an imposing figure with azure hair and a defining scar etched upon his visage. This formidable man declared not only encounters with demonic beasts but also the vanquishing of 2. With a deliberate gesture, Roland prompted them to introduce themselves, setting a stage that evoked palpable tension. The younger guard's unease was unmistakable, his voice faltering in the presence of Roland. In an encounter likely marking his first interaction with royalty up close, the guard's speech faltered and stumbled. He proceeded to detail the snow-triggered protocol, igniting the fire beacon within the tower located on the northern side mine. This beacon would be set ablaze upon the surge of demonic beasts past the forest, prompting the retreat through a concealed route. Shifting his focus, Roland designated the other guard as the new respondent, tasking him with addressing inquiries about the creature's attributes and vulnerability. Despite his palpable unease, the second guard managed to navigate his response without stuttering. He conveyed that demonic beasts were originally ordinary animals tainted by a malevolent aura, amplifying their aggression. Nonetheless, they could be vanquished. Teams from the Canggu stronghold's cavalry often undertook missions to eradicate lingering threats. Abruptly, the hunter's seal took center stage. He stomped his foot, gracefully dropping to one knee, and ardently declared the beasts posed no considerable challenge. With evident pride, he proclaimed his triumph in slaying 2 demonic beasts. The hunter's imposing presence, standing over 7 feet tall, left even Roland taken aback by his aura. Barkov introduced the hunter as Axe, attributing his extraordinary stature to a rumored lineage tracing back to the Majin giants. Axe then delved into his experiences, recounting the defeat of both a wild boar and a wolf, each exhibiting distinctive traits hailing from their pre-infection origins. However, it was the hybrid species that posed the true menace. Unveiling a substantial scar as evidence, Axe revealed these hybrids, apart from their ferocity, demonstrated a certain degree of intelligence. He recounted narrowly escaping into a river after a close encounter. Equipped with the knowledge he sought, Roland rose to his feet and boldly declared his decision to remain in the border town. This announcement astonished Carter and Barkov, prompting Carter to once again offer his rapid counsel in an effort to deter Roland from such a risky choice. Undaunted, Roland extended a proposition to Carter, a wall constructed within 3 months. Carter's initial skepticism evolved into conviction as Roland detailed the condition that if a dependable wall wasn't established by then, he'd retreat to the stronghold. Convinced, Carter pledged his unwavering allegiance to safeguard Roland. On another front, the scene shifted to Beishaway Port in Grey Castle. Against the backdrop of a refreshing ocean breeze playing with her hair and the rhythmic crash of waves, a woman stood. Bedecked in an eye patch and attire reminiscent of a One Piece character, she inquired about her fleet status from her subordinates. Their response indicated the fleet's anticipated return in 3 days. This assertive woman, introduced as Garcia Wimbledon, held the position of the king's third child within Grey Castle. She had methodically trained and built her fleet long before the king's decree. Despite her temperament and beauty, Garcia's intelligence shone through. Her insightful foresight was evident in her adeptness at assembling a force comprised of elite soldiers and seasoned sailors, amassing wealth from years of maritime exploration. Ahead of her siblings in readiness, Garcia harbored undisclosed intentions. The option of deploying spies to infiltrate her siblings' circles and orchestrating their demise was discarded by Garcia Wimbledon. She found herself confronted with an unexpected development. While it was foreseeable that her siblings would expose and eliminate the spy, what bewildered her was the survival of her seemingly ineffectual fourth brother, even after consuming a poison pill. To further complicate matters, a letter from the spy herself arrived, detailing her witness of Roland ingesting the poison pill in her presence. In another fragment of memory, we observe Anna seated amid a field of goats, men in pastoral attire approaching. They engage in conversation, curious about the book she's engrossed in. This scene involves Anna's teacher, named Carl Van Bate. The memory shatters like glass, transitioning to a distressing sight, Carl and a gathering witnessing Anna's hanging. This harrowing imagery seeds unrelenting anxiety and torment within Carl, gradually eroding his mental fortitude. Awakening drenched in sweat, Carl's office exudes his palpable anguish. A tragic event comes to light, the substitution of stone materials due to greed by Grey Castle officials, leading to a theatre building's collapse and claiming numerous lives. Carl's association was scapegoated, the weight of these events tormenting his mind. Anna's unjust fate intensifies his resentment, as she was a pure soul subjected to such injustice. Returning to the present narrative, Roland directs Barco to replace Anna with a death row inmate, a stratagem to mislead the townspeople into believing Anna's execution. The criminal's mouth is gagged, obscuring their face, preserving the illusion of Anna's death. Even Carl, who mourns her passing, remains unaware of her survival. In the current moment, Carl grapples with disillusionment at the kingdom's decay, inequity, rapacious taxation, and indifferent officials corroding its essence, disregarding citizen lives. Contemplating the notion of genuine evil, the kingdom's rot disturbs him deeply. A knock disrupts his ruminations, revealing a distressed young girl at his doorstep. Troubled by bodily changes and haunted by Anna's fate, she trembles in anxiety. An epiphany strikes Carl, prompting him to reassure her with a promise of protection. Walking the streets, Carl's regrets weigh heavily. He laments not defending his association or intervening during Anna's execution. Determined not to relive such failures, he encounters the same girl, named Anawa. Amid this, a billboard sparks commotion, as Roland's recruitment notice garners attention. The call seeks workers for wall construction, offering wages ranging from 12 bronze to an astonishing 1 gold per month for outstanding candidates. The recruitment's final line seizes Carl's attention, implying the possibility of securing official positions for those displaying excellence. Memories of Roland's resistance during Anna's hanging resurface, along with rumors of his discord with the Holy Church. Could Roland possess an unconventional view of witches? This revelation becomes Carl's beacon of hope. Meanwhile, Carter and Roland evaluate the wall's progress. Carter queries the desired height, and Roland stipulates a minimum of 5 meters in height and 2 meters in width. This size accommodates 4 individuals walking abreast, showcasing Roland's unwavering resolve. Carter's thoughts momentarily drifted as he contemplated the intricate blueprint of the wall, calculating the time investment needed. In response to Roland's question, he acknowledged that even with the men provided by Roland, the project's completion would spill over into the following year's month of the demon. The crux of the matter lay in guaranteeing the wall's stability, a challenge that hinged on meticulous stone selection and proper grinding. Roland didn't delve into details but alluded to the importance of cement, leaving Carter perplexed as he pondered its nature. A short interval later, Carter and Roland arrived at a newly erected structure, the cement burning room. Roland ruminated, recognizing the border town's abundant raw materials for cement. Yet, temperature control posed a critical concern, and Roland lacked the precise tools for this task. Before he could dwell further, the door swung open, releasing a rush of heat and steam. Roland instructed Carter to stay put and ventured to the door. Behind it stood Anna, her form dust-covered and unclothed. Roland offered his robe, inquiring about her progress. Anna didn't disappoint, presenting a heap of grey dust resembling cement powder, though it required testing. Curious, she probed about its potential applications. Roland elaborated on cement's versatility, listing its use in constructing buildings, bridges, and resilient structures meant to withstand the elements. He lauded Anna for her impressive creation. Presently, Roland showcased the product to both Carter and Anna, evoking amazement from them. Post-strength testing, Roland unveiled his ambitious plan to demonstrate that witches could revolutionize construction in the kingdom. Several days of devoted labor saw Annette producing bags of cement dust, and the assembled workforce gradually gained momentum. Nevertheless, despite their motivation, progress limped along, leaving trenches more reminiscent of saws than sturdy foundations. Roland's engineering background left him flummoxed, unable to tackle the tasks of a civil engineer. Frustration gnawed at him. Barkov's arrival heralded news of recruiting a stonemason once part of the now disbanded Grey Castle Stonemason Association. Roland directed Barkov to bring the stonemason to him. As afternoon settled in, Roland found himself in his office, Anna by his side engrossed in a book, resembling a masterpiece in his eyes. His thoughts got interrupted by Carter's voice, announcing the stonemason's presence. Courteously, Roland promptly shifted to the business at hand. The stonemason's gaze lifted, locking onto Anna, and he displayed astonishment, audibly uttering her name in disbelief. Tension gripped Carter and Roland as the stonemason unexpectedly knelt, his reaction catching them unprepared. Apologies and expressions of gratitude flowed from him, directed at Anna for her survival. Anna gently closed her book, meeting the stonemason's gaze. Roland observed, his apprehension easing as he perceived the stonemason's demeanor. The individual's reaction indicated he posed no threat to Anna, offering Roland a moment of solace. Anna stood from her chair, a touch of concern evident on her face, as she proceeded to elucidate and introduce Carl as her mentor. In a matter of fleeting moments, Carl's initial agitation found its resolution. This prompted Roland to voice his inquisitiveness regarding Carl's identity. In a moment laden with emotion, Carl delicately wiped away a tear, launching into his own introduction. He detailed the path that led him to assume the role of Anna's teacher, his gaze locking onto Roland's as he expressed his bemusement over Roland's motivation for rescuing a witch. Carl playfully entertained the idea that if Roland's aim was to have Anna as a concubine, it was a more merciful fate than death. Simultaneously, Carl grappled with deciphering Roland's genuine intentions, contemplating the veracity of rumors that hinted at Roland's underlying motives. Carl allowed himself to ponder whether Roland's protection could extend to Manhua in a similar role, offering her safety. Introducing Manhua, Carl depicted her as an enchanting and charming presence, while entertaining the notion of Roland extending his goodwill to her as well. However, Carl's perception veered away from Roland's true motives. Roland set the record straight, revealing the authentic rationale underpinning his rescue of Anna. He aimed to debunk the unfounded misconceptions that swirled around witches, assuring their protection as long as they remained uninvolved in criminal activities. He underscored his commitment to never perpetrate such cruelty on someone as gentle and delightful as she. Manhua nodded in visible relief, then opened up about her perspective. She recounted the common rumor that witches were plagued by curses, tainted by the touch of the devil. However, she personally had never crossed paths with this sinister entity. In a display of empathy, Anna approached Manhua, her comforting touch offering solace. Manhua's anxiety waned as she began recounting an incident from about a week prior. She described how she had tended to an injured bird, only to witness an unfamiliar substance flow from her hands, enveloping the bird in a healing cocoon. Astonishingly, the bird's wound swiftly mended. Roland's heart raced, recognizing the profound significance of Manhua's ability. In a time devoid of modern medical marvels, where advanced treatments and antibiotics were but a fantasy, even a minor injury could escalate into a fatal ordeal. In Manhua's unique talents, Roland discerned a precious gem. With urgency, he dispatched Carter to retrieve a live chicken, eager to explore the extent of Nanoa's gift. Turning back to Nanoa, he questioned whether her perspective on her powers being malevolent had transformed given her newfound healing prowess. Meeting his gaze, Nanoa recounted her teacher's cautionary tales about witches' extraordinary abilities, cleverly manipulated to serve the narrative of devilish influence. She raised 3 fingers to pledge her lack of encounters with such malevolence. Roland voiced his unwavering trust in Nanoa's words, firmly dismissing the notion of a devil's hand in her powers as a fabrication propagated by the church. He acknowledged her teacher's role as an unwitting victim of these deceitful narratives. When Nanoa questioned the church's motives behind these falsehoods, Roland sighed, acknowledging the intricate web of manipulation spun by religion. He drew parallels to similar instances in Earth's history, where personal agendas often eclipsed the pursuit of truth. As moments drifted by, Nanoa's hands folded together, her cheeks flushed with a delicate red as she addressed Roland, her voice gently imploring his tenderness. His comforting smile met her plea, as he assured her that the procedure would be swift and painless. Yet, a sudden realization seemed to hover in the air, an intuition that circumstances might not be as straightforward as they appeared.
Nanola timidly murmured to Roland, "Please, be gentle. I'd rather avoid any unnecessary pain." With a reassuring grin, Roland responded, "No worries, it'll be a swift process." Meanwhile, poor Carter found himself grappling with a squawking chicken, its frantic wings putting on a horror movie audition of their own. The spectacle was akin to a scene straight out of a suspenseful flick. As Roland made his move, Nanola clenched her teeth in anticipation of the ordeal. However, just as her scream was about to escape, the chicken let out an ear-piercing screech, feathers swirling like a chaotic dance. Nanola extended her delicate arms towards the injured creature, invoking her unique abilities. In seconds, the chicken transformed from a sorry mess of feathers into an energized dynamo, its movements as if it had been injected with pure vitality, leaping about as if it had transcended its foul origins to become a soaring eagle. Time elapsed, subjecting the poor chicken to a series of trials and treatments, until its little body lay motionless and cold, tenderly cradled within Carter's warm embrace. Roland concluded that Nanola's powers were capable of restoring damaged body parts, yet unable to regrow a missing limb. Nevertheless, a reattached limb could be healed entirely, though her abilities could not defy death. With the resolution reached, Roland instructed Carter to return the chicken to the kitchen. Nanola stood at a distance, tears streaming down her cheeks, biting her lip to contain her emotions. The intense events of the day had taken their toll. Roland, observant as ever, noticed Nanola's lingering despondency and had a brilliant idea to lift her spirits: a delightful picnic. The sight of the table adorned with an array of mouth-watering dishes and delectable desserts ignited Nanola's eyes with anticipation. Taking her seat, Nanola felt the weight of earlier sadness dissolve into the ether. She was now enveloped in a world of delicious food, genial companionship, and positive energy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Carter escorted Nanola away from the scene, her heart brimming with joy. Even a wave and a promise to return tomorrow were shared between Carter and Roland. Standing beside Roland, Anna couldn't help but ponder why he hadn't encouraged Nanola to stay. Surely, a fellow witch's company would be cherished. Roland's gaze followed Nanola's departure, a soft smile playing upon his lips. For now, he whispered to Anna, Nanola still has her family. They're unaware of her abilities. Anna's eyes dropped to the ground, understanding the weight of the secret that Nanola held. Once revealed, the fate of a witch was often sealed, handed over to the Holy Church. The inevitable day loomed. Sensing Anna's somber mood, Roland gently inquired if she missed her father. Without hesitation, Anna vehemently denied it. A fleeting moment of sadness brushed Roland's heart, his lips pressed together as he considered his words. Swiftly changing the topic, he announced, Nanola will be a frequent guest from now on. Hopefully, she'll be here every day. I'm committed to honing her abilities. Standing tall and exuding determination, Roland confidently assured Anna, rest assured, Anna, for as long as I am here, the equitable treatment of all witches shall be our guiding principle. They shall lead lives just as any other individuals. His proclamation echoed through the air. This transformative day is within our grasp, and I shall not relent until its realization. In recent times, Roland found himself with more leisure on his hands, thanks to Carl's leadership in overseeing the wall project. Afternoons unfurled as he shared tea with Anna and Nanoa. Together, they observed the two young enchantresses hone their magical prowess and refine their skills. Roland's initial guilt for not being more involved in the wall project gradually waned. Observing Karl's tireless dedication, Roland's confidence in his team's capabilities grew. He trusted them to execute their task efficiently. Abruptly, Derev stormed into Roland's chamber, his demeanor rife with urgency. "Your Highness, we confront a significant predicament." His words spilled forth, beads of sweat glistening on his bare forehead. "Our resources have been disproportionately depleted in recruiting laborers and craftsmen. Our financial stability teeters on the brink." Roland leaned back thoughtfully, a pang of helplessness tugging at him. He absent-mindedly scratched his head, grappling with his desire to contribute while facing financial constraints. As Berev observed the fourth prince, he marveled at Roland's remarkable transformation since their days at Grey Castle. The previous notoriety and reckless behavior had given way to a noble bearing. Berev's presence in the small border town had stemmed from a promise of becoming the official finance minister under the king's decree. However, Roland's arrival had initially sparked ridicule and disdain among the nobles and the populace. Everything changed when Roland's intervention rescued a witch from persecution. Berev was astounded by Roland's profound evolution. The metamorphosis was nothing short of astonishing. Roland's commitment to resolving the town's financial woes absorbed him completely. Unbeknownst to him, Berev's countenance registered a mix of bewilderment and amazement. After a beat of silence, Roland shared his plan to enhance the town's revenue. Berev, still taken aback, came to terms with Roland's sincerity and his earnest drive to uplift the town's fortunes. As Roland articulated his strategy, Berev's mind raced, struggling to reconcile this determined figure with the one he had once known. Memories resurfaced of Roland dispelling a demonic presence through a locket's touch. The transformation was unmistakable. Walking along the deserted pier, the ambassador's disappointment was palpable. "Alas," he sighed to his secretary, "the border town continues to grapple." A puzzled glance swept across the yard, raising concerns about the absence of shipments. Curiosity piqued, a decision was made to call upon Roland within the walls of his castle. Amid their journey, speculation swirled about the possibility of new trading alliances emerging within the border town. Unsettled by Roland's recent actions, the ambassador's plans for trade monopoly seemed jeopardized, facing the winds of change brought about by the fourth prince's evolving course. Approaching the grand entrance of border town, a sense of anticipation welled up within the ambassador. To his astonishment, the fourth prince, Roland, extended an unexpected gesture of hospitality by inviting him to a welcome banquet. However, the usual silverware was replaced by a pair of elegant wooden sticks. Intrigued and somewhat befuddled by this unfamiliar utensil, the ambassador observed Roland deftly manipulating his food, particularly a tricky cherry tomato, while the ambassador's own efforts faltered. In a moment that caught him off guard, Roland interjected a question, causing the ambassador's startled reflex to send the tomato soaring. Seizing this unexpected moment, Roland began discussing the virtues of chopsticks over conventional silverware. He highlighted the ease of acquiring chopsticks and their potential to mitigate health concerns arising from direct hand-to-food contact. The ambassador couldn't help but be impressed by the fourth prince's innovative thinking. Roland segued into a pressing matter, the ongoing predicament due to a mining mishap in the cavern, which would halt their harvest until the following year. Responding to the ambassador's inquiry about the past 2 months' yield, Roland soberly acknowledged its insufficiency to sustain his people. He recalled the dire events during the demon month 2 years prior, setting a somber tone. Leaning in, Roland fixed his gaze upon the ambassador, brimming with unwavering determination. "We must forge a superior path," he asserted, dismissing the notion of relying on ineffective traditions. The ambassador, musing over his response, proffered a partial solution, proposing the noble families contribute an additional month's worth of provisions, repayable over time. Roland's reaction was a mix of disappointment and disapproval, his dissent palpable. Roland contended that Willow Town's willingness to trade gold royals for a spectrum of goods, including Roland's famed Zors, indicated an alternative avenue. They managed to sell food at fair market value, a notion that underscored Roland's pragmatism. Evaluating the ambassador with a discerning eye, Roland questioned his authority to broker decisions for the noble families, a stinging reminder of his limitations. A whirlwind of memories flooded the ambassador's mind, harking back to his father's obstinate stance against the fourth prince's strategies. the ambassador had earnestly attempted to sway his father, advocating against exploiting the masses and demeaning Roland. Alas, his father's disdainful dismissal lingered in his recollection, echoing a similar sentiment that Roland now voiced. A pang of helplessness enveloped the ambassador as he faced the inescapable truth. Persuasion eluded him not only in these chambers, but also within the familial confines. However, he was resolute in not allowing Roland to depart without a struggle. Raising 3 fingers, he presented a bid surpassing even Willow Town's offer. With a heartfelt plea, he beseeched Roland, proposing, "Allow me to return to the bastion of Canggu and endeavor to sway the other clans. I shall return with a novel accord in tow." Yet, his words tapered off mid-sentence, his conviction wavering, a trace of uncertainty shrouding him. It was as though he harbored an innate cognizance of his uphill battle. The ambassador persisted, coaxing Roland to remain aligned with Canggu Fortress, asserting that Willow Town, given its distance and the impending Demon's Month, posed an untenable risk, fraught with perils aplenty. Almost inadvertently, he allowed a veiled threat to escape, directed unwittingly at Prince Roland. An amused grin danced upon Roland's lips, an acknowledgement of the ambassador's persistent overtures to align with either Canggu Stronghold or Willow Town. "Refugee status holds no allure for me," he quipped, dismissing the notion with a resolute shake of his head. Boldly, he declared, "Border Town shall metamorphose into the kingdom's new frontier," a vision that led him to extend an invitation to the ambassador, urging him to witness firsthand the monumental wall under construction upon North Slope. The ambassador stood in stunned silence, gradually recalling how his own kin and fellow nobles had derided the 4th prince's audacious wall-building endeavor. "A wall, you say?" he stammered, grappling to internalize this novel concept. Within his mind's recesses, he began to fathom why the world deemed Roland an eccentric, struggling to accord him serious consideration. As Roland crossed the threshold into his abode, he was startled to encounter a shadowy silhouette perched upon his bed. Commending Roland for his diplomatic triumphs, the figure's words registered, yet Roland's instinct surged, propelling him toward the exit. Swiftly, a cloaked maiden interposed herself, a deft flick sending a dagger whirling, barring Roland's egress. In spite of her menacing gesture, she professed peaceful intent, seeking discourse. With cautious curiosity, Roland inquired as to her identity. "Standing tall," she responded, "a name I lack, but Nightingale I am christened by my sisters." Her genuflection bespoke reverence, and homage to Roland's vigilant guardianship over the enchantresses. Puzzled, Roland grappled to comprehend the tableau before him, his gaze alighting upon the emblem adorning Nightingale's cloak, unmistakably the hallmark of a witch association. Conversation hung in the air, charged with tension. Roland's own trepidation notwithstanding, he couldn't help but admire Nightingale's audacity. A week of clandestine observation, her knowledge encompassing Manhwa and Anna, sent shivers down Roland's spine. A revelation as disconcerting as it was astonishing. Still awash in a sea of apprehension, Roland's defensive stance persisted. Nightingale, undaunted, shed her cloak, extending an invitation for a closer inspection. As her true form was unveiled, Roland found himself taken aback. Golden tresses framed a visage punctuated by piercing violet orbs, a figure that exuded allure and held a mesmerizing sway over the senses. As the moonlight cascaded gently across the bed, Nightingale extended a soft invitation, beckoning Roland to draw nearer. An intriguing blend of curiosity and caution swirled within Roland, a dance of emotions set in motion. Yet, Nightingale exuded an air of harmlessness, which reassured him, coaxing him to edge closer. Suddenly, with an unexpected yet strangely thrilling maneuver, Nightingale's delicate fingers traced the line of Roland's jaw, tilting his head towards her in an admiring gesture. A playful smile graced Nightingale's lips, a testament to Roland's undeniable audacity, particularly in the presence of enigmatic witches like herself. As their proximity tightened, Roland's cheeks flushed a shade akin to a deep summer blush, the playful interlude rapidly assuming a more solemn demeanor. In an unforeseen twist, Nightingale unveiled her true intentions, a gust of seriousness sweeping away the previous levity. She disclosed her plan to spirit away Manhwa and Anna, a revelation that jolted Roland from his seat, an emphatic rejection echoing in the air. His fervent insistence underscored their sanctuary in Border Town, a haven of safety and contentment, shielded from the perils that lurked beyond. Roland's resolve ignited, a blazing testament to his unwavering commitment to their safeguarding, bolstered by the steadfast refuge that was Border Town. Undeterred, Nightingale persisted, her voice a plaintive plea that tugged at the heartstrings. Roland, however, countered with the stark reality they faced, a nomadic existence, ever on the run, hunted and concealed. Their dire circumstances, bereft of sustenance, shelter, and warmth, converged with the looming specter of the month of demons, a chilling reminder of impending trials. Amidst this tempest of deliberation, a flicker of memory ignited within Roland's consciousness, a recollection of Bear's words, hinting at the witch association's quest for the holy mountain. Emboldened by this revelation, Roland inquired of Nightingale, the question lingering with urgency. Alas, Nightingale's lips remained sealed, a mystery shrouding her intent. A symphony of thoughts surged through Roland's mind, a crescendo of contemplation culminating in an inspired revelation. A spark of brilliance illuminated his thoughts, and he ventured forth with a daring proposition. His voice, infused with conviction, conveyed the notion of inviting all the witches to the embrace of Border Town for the duration of the month of demons. A sanctuary of protection, a fleeting respite from their ceaseless wandering, followed by a renewed pursuit of the elusive holy mountain. Nightingale's elation wavered, supplanted by a lingering trepidation. She sounded a note of caution, a refrain of doubt tinged with the fear of exposing their fragile sanctuary to the world's gaze. With a clenched fist born of exasperation, Roland confronted the harsh reality that changing deeply ingrained perceptions was no facile endeavor. The tendrils of fear, coiled tight around the hearts of his people, resisted easy unraveling. A mounting frustration mirrored in his gaze, his realization crystallized: there were no shortcuts, no swift remedies. In a stunning revelation, Nightingale unveiled a truth that pierced the air, words heavy with implications. Nanawa and Anna, on the cusp of their awakening, stood poised at the brink of a fate both unknown and ominous. Nightingale's tone shifted, her voice a murmur laden with gravity. She posed a question, laden with the weight of history. Did Roland comprehend the origins of the damning perception that cast witches as incarnations of malevolence? Roland's brows furrowed, a portrait of bewilderment painted across his features, his response an admission of ignorance. With a somber grace, Nightingale proceeded to unravel the tangled tapestry of fear and prejudice, sketching a chilling portrait of the destiny that loomed over Nanawa and Anna. Their 18th birthday, a milestone marked not by celebration but by dread, heralded an unforeseen metamorphosis. The tale unfolded, and the air grew thick with a palpable sense of foreboding, as Nightingale wove a tale that spanned generations, a tapestry of torment that threatened to ensnare the very essence of those most dear to Roland's heart. Every year, during the dreaded demons months, a relentless agony would ensnare them. The devil lurking within would unleash its torment upon their very beings, a torment akin to being torn asunder from within. Those possessing the strength could recover after a few grueling days, yet for the less fortunate, their bodies would contort into haunting specters before succumbing to a torturous demise. This is why the populace perceives witches as vessels of malevolence, embodying the sinister. Roland then inquired about the aftermath of the coming-of-age ritual. Nightingale elucidated that as they reached maturity, their powers would stabilize and burgeon significantly, potentially birthing a novel realm of magic. Caught in a quandary, Roland found himself torn. He required Anna and Nanola's aid during the demons' months, yet endangering their lives was not an option. Consequently, he entrusted the final verdict to the young women. Nightingale acknowledged Roland's democratic approach with a nod. Anna, however, stood resolute, defying expectations. "I shall remain here," she declared. Roland and Nightingale were momentarily taken aback. Nightingale ardently argued the peril Anna faced, but Anna was unwavering. She believed herself safer amidst the witch camp, undeterred by conventional life or scholastic pursuits. Her sole aspiration was to stand steadfast beside Roland, her determination unwavering. Her eyes aflame with resolve, she pledged to defy the lurking malevolence, asserting her ultimate victory. Exhaling a deep sigh of acceptance, Nightingale opted to stay, poised to aid Anna if circumstances demanded. Roland, however, feared Nightingale's potential perpetual presence. He warned Anna anew, recounting her own past ordeals teetering on the brink of death, watching comrades fall. She assured Anna that she knew how to confront the aftermath, retrieving her dagger before vanishing into thin air. Roland marveled at Nightingale's prowess, akin to that of a born assassin. Tenderly, Roland rested his hand on Anna's head, his voice a soothing balm as he coaxed her into rest. Anna's gaze brimmed with affection, softly dubbing him a fool. Amidst the border castle, Roland stood tall, emanating authority. He unveiled his vision for the future and divulged negotiations with the ambassador, admitting to an impasse reminiscent of 2 years prior. The ambassador remained immovable, mirroring the past, when over a fifth of border town's populace succumbed to winter's merciless grasp, leaving countless families shattered and bereaved amidst the heavy air laden with sorrow. Individuals fondly recollected their dearly departed, tears glistening in their eyes. A contemplative notion crossed his mind: were all prepared to endure the loss of a loved one once more? The assembly exuded a sense of despair, their collective lament reaching the prince, beseeching him for salvation. With a slight clearing of his throat, Roland undertook a transformation, infusing his tone with unwavering confidence and a renewed spirit. He emphatically stated his unwavering commitment to his people, renouncing any notion of forsaking them. In light of the abhorrent terms proffered by the Chengdu stronghold, he rallied his people, asserting their entitlement to a superior fate. He reminded them of the intended exchange: 2 months of warfare sacrificed for half a year's sustenance, only to be deceived by Changji's stronghold, receiving a mere 2-month ration of sustenance. The assembly's ire and vexation hung thickly, a tangible force, yet Roland swayed it, swiftly providing reassurance. His strategy came into focus: a skillful trade with Willow Town's merchants secured an ample stockpile, sufficient to brave the impending harsh winter. A chorus of applause and jubilation erupted from the crowd, promptly quelled by Roland's upraised hand, as he imparted crucial intelligence: the once welcoming Qiangji stronghold now barred entry. A collective shudder coursed through the assembly, apprehension evident as they contemplated the unforeseen trials ahead. Roland's voice, steady and resolute, assured them of an impregnable bulwark under construction, a tangible emblem of security to be raised. To Roland, the dread-inspiring demonic beasts were akin to any other untamed woodland creature, merely fortified with might. Their prowess outmatched their intellect, the fortifications were beyond their ken. A query was once again presented, an inquiry of paramount significance. A pivotal choice unfurled before them: should they yield and languish in a refugee's plight, defeated by famine? Alternatively, would they rise valiantly, safeguarding their beloved kin and the border town beneath Roland's stewardship?
The atmosphere in Border Town was electric. Cass Roland's voice reverberated through the air like a powerful anthem, and the fervor it ignited in the hearts of the locals was incomparable. The response was instantaneous. A wave of cheers erupted that could rival the decibel level at a raucous rock concert. There was something in the air, a palpable excitement that turned ordinary citizens into fervent patriots, willing to go to any lengths to protect their highness. The air felt like it was ablaze, teeming with an ardor so intense it could light up the night sky. But not everyone was singing Roland's praises. In the opulent halls of Chengdu Castle, a collection of nobles had assembled, each dripping with contempt for Roland's audacious decisions. They were a garrulous bunch, indulging in mockery as if it were fine wine, laughing at the rudimentary construction of Border Town's defenses. Nothing but mud and pebbles, they chortled. It was at this juncture that the Duke, a towering figure with a voice that could make the very walls tremble, interjected. Cutting through the laughter like a knife, he locked eyes with Petrov, the diplomatic ambassador representing the region. Startled but quickly regaining his composure, Petrov began to outline the unfolding situation. The Duke leaned in, his eyes widening with keen interest as Petrov divulged Roland's audacious plan to renegotiate the ore monopoly. Petrov had originally intended to secure the valuable resources for a price far below market value, but Roland had outplayed him. Rather than simply bargaining, Roland aimed to revolutionize Border Town's economic prospects altogether, offering ore at a staggering 50% below market price. Even more, he planned to manufacture iron tools in-house. But that was not all. Petrov continued, painting a strategic picture that hinted at long-term visions. He surmised that if Roland could successfully repel the anticipated invasion of demonic forces, it would be a significant triumph for the Chengdu stronghold. However, he cautioned that Roland's ambitions stretched beyond merely defending the border town. With the fight for the throne lasting only 5 years, the tides of power were subject to change. Petrov, ever the savvy diplomat, had a piece of advice for the Duke: to extend aid to Roland to fortify the border town. A strong border town, Petrov argued, would inevitably benefit everyone involved. The Duke's face momentarily lit up with a grin of acknowledgement. However, it wasn't long before a shadow overtook his features. He stood up, his expression turning into a fierce scowl. He made it clear, in no uncertain terms, that while he might entertain Petrov's counsel, no one should mistake this for concern for the border town. His overarching message was clear: the border town was his, and he would not tolerate anyone, including Roland, meddling in its affairs. Meanwhile, back in border town, Roland was engaging in an altogether different form of diplomacy. He summoned Carter, a figure of skepticism and traditional values, to witness his latest feat, a steam engine, an engineering marvel brought to life by the expert hands of Anna. Roland, a mechanical enthusiast, was smitten by this revolutionary invention that could trigger a new industrial age. Carter, however, harbored doubts. But those evaporated the moment Anna activated the engine. With a deafening roar, the contraption came alive. It was a visceral display of mechanical potency, and both Anna and Carter stood slack-jawed, grappling with the realization of what this machine could mean for the future. Carter felt a shiver run down his spine. This machine, built in mere days, could render years of night training obsolete. That night, Roland returned home to find Nightingale, an unexpected but intriguing guest, sitting on his bed with the steam engine blueprints in hand. Roland was initially perplexed, pondering how she had managed to get a hold of the carefully locked-away document. Yet her palpable excitement and curiosity soon led him into a detailed explanation of the machine's potential applications. Nightingale grinned, the implications of such technological prowess flooding her mind. With the swiftness of a cat, she swiped the blueprints back, promising to take them to the Witch Association. Watched as Nightingale delved into her shirt and, with an air of secrecy, retrieved a crumpled letter. It had been delivered by a pigeon, one of the most clandestine methods of communication in the kingdom. With eyes widening in disbelief, he skimmed the text, feeling his emotions morph from shock to a sense of utter betrayal. The parchment's inked words stung like an open-handed slap to his face. The message was an instruction to his trusted maid, Tyre, ordering her to assassinate him during the accursed months known as the Months of the Demon. Shockingly, this wasn't the first sinister message of this sort. The letter emphasized that failure was not an option this time. He recalled a peculiar incident involving the previous fourth prince, who had a strange fascination with slapping tires on cakes, a seemingly nonsensical act that now appeared laden with hidden meaning. Nightingale, catching a hint of Roland's turbulent emotions, offered to help. "Should I investigate this further?" she asked. Roland exhaled deeply and nodded, asking only for a blueprint of the castle's secret passages as her reward for this service. The next morning was no less tumultuous. Carter, one of Roland's trusted advisors, burst into the office, his face ashen. He informed Roland that Tyre had died under mysterious circumstances the previous night, apparently falling from the balcony of her own room. A preliminary investigation had found no signs of struggle or forced entry. Upon hearing this news, Roland gave orders for the head maid to arrange for Tyre's funeral. Just as he did so, a dense fog materialized in the room. As it cleared, Nightingale emerged, shrouded in a hood and visibly distressed. She informed Roland that she had failed to extract any information from Tyre before her death because Tyre had poisoned herself, hiding the lethal substance within a cavity in her teeth. Nightingale had more to share. During her investigation, she had found another letter in Tyre's room. While she couldn't decipher its contents, the word ocean and the address Big Sister caught her attention. Given that Roland's two brothers were inland rulers with no access to the sea, this clue led Nightingale to suspect the involvement of the third princess, a character known to harbor resentment against Roland. This revelation set Roland's mind ablaze with thoughts. Could the third princess have been so malevolent as to take Tyre's family hostage, forcing her to commit to such a dark plot? The possibility was not out of the realm of imagination. And regardless of whether Roland aspired to the throne, these types of political machinations would not cease. Just as Roland was connecting these ominous dots, he was interrupted by Nightingale. "Someone is here," she whispered, her voice tinged with urgency, before vanishing into a mist of fog. Barev entered, concern etched across his features. He reported that the volunteers Roland had called for to defend the border town had been finalized. Excited, Roland eagerly prepared to review these volunteers, but a crucial question from Barev stopped him. "Are you sure you want these people defending the town?" When Roland saw the motley crew assembled before him, he understood Barev's apprehension. These were not seasoned warriors, they were ordinary folks, many emaciated and obviously malnourished. This stark reality stung Roland. He couldn't help but think about the abysmal state of the kingdom, where people couldn't even afford meals. Despite the disconcerting look that emerged on his face, when Roland gazed out at the sea of people assembled in front of him, his heart surged with excitement and determination. Declining Carter's suggestion to rely on professional fighters, Roland had made a pivotal decision. If he were to forge a formidable army, he knew it had to spring from the core of the society they were meant to protect. The people themselves had to become the backbone of this force. He wasn't naive. He recognized that molding this disparate group into an army wasn't simply a matter of weapon training. No, it was far more nuanced. These recruits needed agility, strength, and above all, discipline. They had to learn to function as a seamless unit, not just as individuals wielding swords. With a nod to Carter, he commanded, "Get them into formation. Begin with the basics." As the sun reached its zenith, Roland, Carter, Berev, and Axe took their positions at the front of the assembled recruits. Carter's eyebrows furrowed, his face a canvas of bewilderment. To him, it seemed almost nonsensical to make the men stand for hours just to receive a precious egg as a reward. But Roland knew better. He understood the importance of posture, alignment, and the rigorous mental focus required to stand at attention, cornerstones of modern military training. Roland waved off Carter's skepticism. "Continue this way until I release the finalized training routine," he ordered. He was under no illusions about transforming his ragtag group into elite warriors overnight. Yet, he knew the value of discipline and the profound impact it could have on unit cohesion. That afternoon, when the cart filled with food, and the much-coveted extra eggs, arrived, the crowd erupted in eager anticipation. But Roland was unyielding. He bellowed for order, demanding that they form lines. Astonishingly, within minutes, what was once an unruly mob transformed into 4 well-aligned queues. It was a minor yet crucial victory for discipline and order. Later, he headed for the camp where the patrolling troops were stationed. Axe was put in charge of teaching them the art of encampment. Carter seemed uneasy. After all, Axe was a foreigner. But for Roland, loyalty and merit transcended geography. "These are my people," he declared, silencing any lingering doubts. As evening descended, Roland sat back, perusing his final training plans. 2 routines stood out for Carter. Every day at noon, the troops would run laps around the border town until sunset, and after dinner, they would attend Carl's academy for additional training. The academy part puzzled Carter. "Why the emphasis on education?" he asked. "A strong army is more than just fighters. They must be civilized, well-rounded individuals," Roland explained, stifling a yawn. The next afternoon, a weary Roland entered his office to find Nightingale already there, half of the breakfast spread on his desk consumed. Her impish grin greeted him. "Has no one taught you about respecting royalty?" Roland quipped, recalling how seriously Nightingale had taken etiquette during their first encounter. Nightingale responded with a formal bow but swiftly straightened up. His eyes shifted from the half-eaten plate of breakfast to her animated face. "If you're hungry, finish it. I can always request another meal," he said. Her eyes sparkled at the suggestion, and she proceeded to polish off the remaining toast and eggs. "What's with all the ice you're buying?" she inquired between bites, her imagination conjuring images of cold beverages. Roland's lips twitched into a faint smile. "I plan to make iced cheese," he disclosed, his eyes darting to a note on the table. Nightingale's curiosity soared. The prospect of a novel culinary endeavor thrilled her. Simultaneously, Roland's mind wrestled with an array of considerations. While Nightingale didn't seem to be an adversary, he couldn't yet fully confide in her. Information was scant, and the stakes were high. On his table lay a draft detailing plans for manufacturing firearms. Less technologically demanding than the steam engine, firearms could, nevertheless, be perilous if mishandled or leaked. He had made an unsettling discovery recently. Nobles were using niter, a crucial component for gunpowder, as a cooling agent for beverages, christening it Ison in a bizarrely elegant linguistic flourish. Roland glanced at Nightingale. "Does the Witch Association train assassins?" he cautiously inquired, suspecting layers to her backstory. The moment the association was mentioned, her demeanor changed. Her voice softened, the vivacity faded. She described them as a pitiful group, compelled to band together out of need. Nightingale had sought refuge there, craving a semblance of belonging. Feeling emboldened yet cautious, Roland ventured to ask about her prior affiliations. "Have you worked for others before?" Her mood shifted, eyes downcast. She disclosed her grim reality. If not for her utility, her life would have been extinguished. However, she did not elaborate. He felt compelled to probe further but held back. Her discomfort was palpable. After days of exhaustive labor, Roland finally unveiled his first flintlock. The weapon was an engineering marvel, but he was pragmatic enough to recognize the challenges ahead. Though his steam engine could mass-produce parts, the intricate components still needed a human touch, which bottlenecked production. He calculated that at the current rate, only 4 flintlocks could be ready before the looming month of the demons. Carter, witnessing the flintlock's revelation, was awestruck yet puzzled. How could this odd-looking device stand against monstrous demons? He wondered aloud. Roland's response was straightforward but astonishing. He would form a specialized squad comprised of the most skilled hunters in Border Town to wield these flintlocks. Carter was puzzled. Why hunters and not the patrol squad? For a moment, Roland hesitated, memories of the patrol squad's recent struggles flooding his mind. Brian, a member of the local patrol squad, was fighting a battle upon which the fate of Border Town teetered. Each clang of swords resonated ominously through the narrow tunnel, a grim symphony that marked his face-off with a scar-faced assailant, a man who had vowed to deal Brian the same grim fate as his fallen comrade, Grey Dog. For Brian, the stakes transcended personal survival. Allowing this enemy to breach the castle walls meant jeopardizing the welfare of his community. Fueled by a surge of adrenaline, he disarmed the attacker, driving his sword into the man's chest. The enemy's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to comprehend his defeat at the hands of a mere patrolman. "While you wasted your time in bars, Grey Dog, and our training," Brian sneered, his defiance shining through the gloom. However, just as he prepared to deliver the final blow, another enemy emerged from the shadows, stabbing him with a dagger. Brian collapsed, racked with pain, his vision blurring. It wasn't long before more patrol squads arrived, their numbers swelling into a small army. Despite the debilitating pain, Brian, clutching his wound, took one shuddering breath and hurled the dagger at the nearest torch. Darkness swallowed the sewer, the only sound being the hiss of extinguished flames and panicked yells. Staggering back to the granary, Brian knew it was the enemy's target. Without its supplies, Border Town would have no option but to seek refuge at Chong-ji's stronghold. Roland's reign had ushered in progress and hope. Brian couldn't let it be snuffed out. Just as it seemed like the end, the door burst open. Thrown to the ground, Brian felt resigned to his fate. But at that moment, Nightingale descended from the rafters. A blur of deadly grace, she neutralized the intruders, leaving them motionless on the ground. In the morning light, Carter surveyed the grim scene. 8 corpses lay in the granary, most belonging to the patrol squad. In Roland's office, the young prince seethed with anger at the audacity of the intrusion. But he took a moment to extend his gratitude to Nightingale, acknowledging that without her, he might have been among the casualties. His anger then morphed into a warm grin as he offered her a role as his personal shadow guard, promising 2 gold royals per month among other perks. Yet, Nightingale hesitated. Her loyalties were torn between the promise of a persecution-free life and her sisters in the Witch Association. When she refused Roland's offer, choosing not to abandon her comrades, he was impressed. Extending another offer, he implored her to gather her fellow witches and join him in Border Town, where he aimed to rebuild a community where witches could live without fear of discrimination. Nightingale found herself touched by Roland's resolute compassion. But skepticism gnawed at her. She insisted on witnessing the successes of his endeavors firsthand before putting her trust in him. Undeterred, he pressed forward, seeking Nightingale's insight into the unsettling incident involving MANHUA, who had been left shaken and scared after treating a bloodied man. When Roland delved deeper, Nightingale suggested that the nefarious scheme was likely the handiwork of an amateur, unconnected to his formidable siblings. As she spoke, she elegantly picked up a teacup and took a sip, her demeanor a tranquil sea of calm in the tempestuous situation. Her words were imbued with confidence, assuring Roland she was acutely aware of the complexities at hand. By noon, Roland, alongside Carter, his trusted aide, ventured into a nondescript room. The door creaked open to reveal a bandage-swathed Brian, who, despite his visible agitation, was calmed by Roland's gentle nod. Roland praised Brian for his unmatched valor, labeling him nothing short of a hero. Overwhelmed with emotion at the memory of his fallen comrade, Brian's body trembled, tears streaming down his face. Roland placed a comforting hand on Brian's shoulder, assuring him that his friend would be honored in death as in life. It was then that Roland, with a gravitas that filled the room, announced the impending execution of the scar-faced malefactor. Brian's face took on a contorted expression of both relief and concern. He spoke of the complex socio-political dimensions, how executing someone of noble birth might incite retribution from the Changu stronghold. Roland's eyes gleamed as he debunked Brian's fears, stating categorically that the man, though distantly noble, held neither title nor land and had committed crimes warranting the ultimate penalty. The steely resolve in Roland's voice was inescapable. Brian was then informed of a forthcoming honor. Roland's voice softened as he spoke, instructing Brian to focus on his recovery. His eyes widening in awe, Brian was told that he and his patrol would be formally conferred knighthood, assuming the solemn duty of defending the border town and its inhabitants. Roland's commitment was a bedrock of stability. His unwavering gaze met Brian's, allowing the gravity of his words to percolate through the room. Simultaneously, at the training grounds, Axe, an imposing figure, vociferously commanded the soldiers, his voice reverberating across the field. As Roland approached, he descended the stairs feeling an uncharacteristic trepidation. The soldiers before him were a tableau of discipline and readiness, their eyes filled with a palpable expectation. A flurry of thoughts whipped through Roland's mind, searching for the most potent words to catalyze these men into action. Taking a deep breath, he chose to address a young, blond soldier specifically. His voice, clear and incisive, cut through the morning air. Inquiring about the well-being of his troops, Roland's face broke into a radiant grin. For this young man, schooled by past experiences and news snippets about royal decorum, the outpouring of emotion was unprecedented. Roland's eyes fell on the youthful figure, and he couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. The other soldiers watched in awe as their Royal Highness stepped down to the grounds himself. A moment to etch in their memories, an immediate bolstering of morale, was happening before their very eyes. Walking toward the young man, Roland outstretched his hand, signaling that there was no need for such formalities in his presence. "Stand," he conveyed, his tone warm yet regal. The young soldier rose, his face flushed but his eyes full of fire, a vivid portrait of youthful zeal. Roland's heart soared. The atmosphere was palpable, not just with military discipline but also with enthusiasm, an enthusiasm catalyzed by proper nutrition and rest as much as by the occasion. Turning his attention toward the young man again, Roland asked if he had any ideas to improve their training regimen. After an initial moment of hesitation, a deep breath provided the young soldier with the needed courage to speak. "Your Highness, our forces are thinly stretched. In case of an attack by demonic beasts, we can only defend a third of the wall." The ensuing murmurs from the surrounding soldiers seemed to echo the young man's concern. Roland raised his hand for silence. "What's your name?" he inquired. "Venner, Your Highness. Venner, you have keen observational skills, and I share your concerns." Nods came from Axe, who was standing nearby. "Demonic beasts may not be strategic creatures, but they are dangerous in numbers. Let me share our next steps." Roland divulged his tactical vision. Given the 600-meter span of the wall, he proposed dividing the forces into 3 groups with interposing obstacles. These would funnel the beasts into areas where soldiers could best counterattack. Axe's concerns about the feasibility of fending off beasts with just spears and arrows were palpable, but Roland had another card up his sleeve. Almost on cue, a deafening explosion erupted in the distance. Fire and smoke billowed into the sky, shaking the earth beneath them. It was gunpowder, a new weapon in their arsenal. The soldiers, Carter, and even Axe were spellbound, comparing its power to the thunder of gods. Walking up to the resulting crater, Roland couldn't help but feel a surge of exhilaration. Axe eagerly questioned the scalability of this newfound power. Roland, tempering excitement with realism, acknowledged that mass production wouldn't be feasible in the short term. However, he was optimistic about accumulating enough of these game-changing weapons in time for any significant threats. For Nightingale, who had been observing, the world was often shades of black and white. Her unique perspective allowed her the freedom to move in realms most couldn't perceive, unfettered by conventional limitations. Nightingale moved as if tethered to an intricate tapestry of ever-shifting lines that only she could perceive. This unique perspective allowed her not just to pass through solid matter, but also to see the ebb and flow of magical energy within witches. On this particular night, she was taken aback. Anna, the young witch she was observing, not only sensed her presence, but welcomed her with open arms and an astonishingly radiant core of magical power. Nightingale couldn't help but be impressed. Emerging from the midst of her concealed state, Nightingale greeted Anna, who was clad in her pajamas, diligently practicing her abilities. "Care for some fish cakes?" Nightingale offered, her own countenance graced by a bright smile. Anna gratefully accepted, sterilizing her hands with her precise manipulation of flames. Nightingale marveled at the girl's control, yet also couldn't ignore a cautionary note that sounded in her mind. Such potent abilities often came with a price, the risk of excruciating pain during demonic torture sessions. Amid the cozy setting, Nightingale's expression turned gravely serious. "Anna, have you considered what it means to stay in Border Town? It's not without risks, especially in the harsh winters ahead. There's a safe haven for witches like us. Have you thought about joining the Witch Association?" Anna listened intently, but countered with a question of her own. "Where are you from, Nightingale? Were you happy there?" The words touched a nerve. Memories of a life filled with torment and subjugation flooded back to Nightingale. What prompted Anna to ask such a loaded question? Anna shared her own story, telling Nightingale of her sale to the church by her own father, her grim life thereafter, and her eventual rescue by Roland. Nightingale was struck by Anna's unshakable faith in Roland's vision, a vision of hope and transformation for all witches and the land they inhabit. "Do you find more fulfillment in the Witch Association, or here?" Anna asked, capturing Nightingale's gaze with her own crystalline eyes. Just as Nightingale was about to reply, the door burst open. It was Nana, face ashen, eyes filled with desperation, her voice trembling as she pleaded for Anna's help. Nightingale was already alert, her instincts sharpened to a razor's edge. Anna rose to follow Nana. The mood abruptly shifted from philosophical musings to urgent crisis. Meanwhile, Roland was rudely pulled from a dream by Nightingale. "Nana's father is here, and he knows she's a witch," she spat out, anger shaping her features. Roland's mind raced as he dressed, no longer buoyed by the illusion of peace his dream had offered him. Entering the meeting room, he came face to face with a livid man, the lines on his withered face distorted by a venomous fury. "Where is my daughter?" he demanded, veins bulging in his neck. Standing before the irate man with silver hair, Nano was visibly shaking. The older man vehemently argued, his voice drenched in indignation, that his daughter was no witch. Any such insinuations were but foolishness. As he raged on, Anna and Roland shared a furtive glance, a silent affirmation that they understood the gravity of the situation. A sudden flicker of flame sprang to life in Anna's palm, causing the man to jump back, his eyes widening in disbelief and his countenance tainted with fear. Tears coursed down Nano's face as she implored Anna to cease. Her father's anger shifted gears to confusion, his voice quivering as he sought an explanation for the arcane occurrence. Roland stepped into the tension, his smile more placating than a diplomat's. "A misunderstanding," he proposed, urging the man to simmer his boiling emotions and engage in a dialogue to iron things out. Gradually, the tempest in the elder man's eyes settled into a drizzle. Roland took this opportunity to emphasize Nano's innate gifts for healing, suggesting that she could prove invaluable in the looming battle against the underworld fiends. But her father resisted, his reluctance fueled by a deep-rooted desire to protect her from perilous circumstances. With calculated intent, Roland invoked the legacy of Nano's grandfather, a gallant knight who had stood tall against demonic entities. Witnessing the shift in the old man's demeanor, Roland discerned a glimmer of pride and respect flicker in his eyes. The man appeared almost ennobled as he took a nostalgic stroll down the lanes of his father's valor. Roland then shifted the focus to the man's roughened hands, a tactile testament to his labor, an indication that he was unlike other nobles who had abandoned their ancestral values. He carefully broached the subject of the Pine family's current struggle under the tyranny of Duke Ryan. The man was startled, yet moved by Roland's insight into his family's tribulations. Emboldened, Roland extended an offer for Nano's father to join them in Border Town, to lend his martial prowess to fend off the encroaching monstrosities. As a gesture of goodwill, he would be granted a parcel of valuable land. The man hesitated, his face a battleground of conflicting emotions, determination clashing with fear, skepticism pitted against hope. And then Roland drew the darkest card, warning of spies from the church who could expose Nano's secret and doom them all. He assured the man of a contingency plan, a vessel on standby to carry Nano and Anna to safety should their mission falter. Caught between dread and a glimmer of trust in the mysterious Roland, Nano's father finally gave in. Sworn as a knight, he pledged to fight by Roland's side. As farewells were exchanged, Anna cornered Roland and demanded to know why he'd offered a boat as an escape route. Her voice was tinged with resolve as she declared, "I won't be going anywhere. I have my place here, in your strategy." The room hung heavy with the mingled sense of burning wood and impending challenges. For in that room, decisions had been made, decisions that could very well alter the fate of not just a family, but perhaps a realm. Barrett dashed into the room, his visage marred by palpable distress, hastily imparting the dire news. Their military training and arms manufacture were rapidly depleting the treasury. If this course held, financial ruin would strike before the demon months concluded. Rubbing his temples, Roland processed the urgency of the predicament. He directed Barrett to siphon necessary funds from his personal reserves. Barrett's countenance reflected concern, especially for Roland's welfare, but the latter remained unwavering. Assuring Barrett that, should their plans falter, he would be the first to exit, Roland emphasized the need for concentrated efforts. As Barrett retreated, Roland sank into his desk, grappling with his internal gloom. He had never anticipated such a rapid exhaustion of resources. In this moment of desolation, Nightingale emerged, materializing out of the evening mist. Her grin hinted at mischief as she questioned Roland's earlier assurances to Barrett. Roland felt a flush creep over his face. Nightingale's eyes, tinged with worry for Anna, advised him to invest more time with her. Roland, however, was confident of Anna's fortitude against demonic aggressors, a conviction rooted in Anna's own words. Nightingale was startled by Roland's absolute faith in a witch, particularly one allegedly cursed. Roland met her disbelief head-on, his eyes unyielding. He trusted Anna as much as he did Nightingale. The room suffused with an awkward quiet. Nightingale shuffled, visibly impacted by Roland's staunch belief. Evidently moved, she finally spoke, acknowledging Roland's sincerity. As the tension dispersed, Nightingale gravitated towards the window. The first snowflakes of the season were descending, ushering in the demon months. She caught Roland's eye, an unspoken pact was sealed between them. Later, as Roland entered the training grounds, the air reverberated with gunfire. Axe, engrossed in target practice, turned at Roland's approach. His grin conveyed confidence. He had mastered the flintlock. Honoring the man who had equipped him, Axe resolved never to let Roland down. Shifting his attention, Roland consulted Carter about the slow pace of weapon production. Acknowledging the dilemma, Roland assured him that more arms would be ready soon enough. Together, they strode towards the city wall. Roland's thoughts swirled around the looming demon invasion as they arrived to find the soldiers standing at attention. Axe's report, no demon sightings yet, allowed Roland a fleeting moment of relief. The tranquility of the first snowfall, it seemed, extended to their monstrous foes as well. However, their respite was abruptly cut short when a soldier stationed atop the wall let out a sharp cry of warning. A solitary figure had materialized in the distance. Panic rippled through the ranks of the soldiers, and some hurriedly suggested triggering the alarm. In the midst of this growing agitation, Roland, exhibiting his characteristic composure and leadership, reminded his men of their rigorous training and implored them to exercise prudent judgment. With time, the soldiers managed to regain their collective calm, gradually lowering their drawn bows. Roland's weariness was evident as he let out a tired exhale, acknowledging the demanding drills as essential for instilling discipline within his troops. Standing in unison, their gazes locked on the stealthy fox inching closer to the formidable fortress walls, the soldiers remained watchful. In a sudden surge, the beast surged forward, its gaze fixed on the towering barrier ahead. Quick to anticipate its intentions, Axe's prompt reaction alerted Roland to the potential threat. The creature seemed poised to breach the defenses. Carter, known for his unwavering valor and protective instincts, positioned himself resolutely before Roland, ready to strike without hesitation. With practiced precision, Axe drew his bow and released an arrow that found its mark, fatally piercing the sinewy body of the beast. Surveying the lifeless form of the creature, Roland's inquisitive mind sprang into action. The creature's ebony-hued blood piqued his curiosity, and the realization that witches could withstand the aftermath of the awakening only intensified his fascination. Fueled by this newfound intrigue, he mentally resolved to explore the enigmatic mountain in the near future. Turning his attention to Axe, Roland sought information about the consequences of being bitten by a demonic beast. To his relief, Axe confirmed that death was the sole outcome, dispelling fears of a ghastly transformation into a zombie-like entity from some otherworldly abyss. Roland's mind raced with a daring idea, consuming the flesh of the fallen beast. However, before he could articulate his plan, Carter's voice thundered in vehement opposition. The notion of consuming infected meat wasn't just unappetizing but also perilous for their survival. Axe underscored Carter's stance with the grim fact that any hounds consuming tainted meat would inevitably meet their demise. Roland's heart sank as he grasped the missed opportunity, prompting a wistful sigh to escape him. Amid the troops' routine patrols, an abrupt report reached them: an individual was injured in the treacherous North Slope mines. Frenzied activity ensued, and Roland swiftly made his way to the hospital. There, he was greeted by the sight of Nanola, a young girl trembling with fear, as she cautiously distanced herself from the wounded miner. Nanola's father, a beacon of calm amidst the chaos, rushed to his daughter's side, offering solace and support. Drawing upon her inner strength, Nanola steeled herself and approached the injured man. With a deep breath, she harnessed her latent ability, unleashing a blinding flash of light that left her father in awe. Astonishingly, the injured man's wounds were miraculously healed. Brian, at his side, credited Nanola with saving his life, expressing profound gratitude toward her. Moments later, the injured man gradually regained consciousness, his thoughts muddled with confusion and disbelief. He contemplated whether the recent events were mere fragments of a vivid dream. In his reassuring voice, Roland assured him that it was indeed real, recounting how he had been rescued from the brink of death by none other than the extraordinary Nanola and her remarkable ability. The man recoiled in astonishment at the mention of Nanola's ability, emitting a gasp, grappling with the implications. Nanola's father, bristling with anger, sternly rebuked the man for his presumption that all witches were demons. He reminded the man that Nanola had saved his life, a deed that a demon would never undertake to aid a human. Recognizing his grave error, the man sprang out of bed and fell to his knees, fervently pleading for Nanola's forgiveness. Tears streamed down his face as he expressed deep gratitude to the young girl for saving his life. As Roland returned to his residence, he was greeted by the sight of Nightingale perched on his bed, her eyes reflecting concern. She voiced her fear that Nanola's unique ability might be exposed, thus preventing the young girl from ever leading a normal life. Before Nightingale could articulate her concerns further, Roland interjected urgently. He reminded her of the small size of the border town and the limited influence of the Holy Church. Roland believed that the present was an opportune moment to build trust in witches and seized the chance before the ominous month of the demon arrived. He held firm confidence that demonstrating to the people that witches were not demons could gradually dismantle the walls of fear and prejudice that had long stood against them. As he handed Nightingale a glass of wine, he conveyed his assurance that everything was under control. The thick blanket of snow enveloping the path to the Chengdu stronghold, coupled with their control over the shipping ports, ensured that no news of the border town could escape to the outside world. With 3 months at their disposal, they had ample time to effect change. Roland reminded Nightingale of the miners saved by Nanola earlier that day, a testament to the potential for transformation. In a transformative time, miners who once lived in dread of supernatural forces now saw Nanoa, a mystical entity, as an angel of rejuvenation. Roland, the visionary leader of Grey Castle, seized upon this change of sentiment to elevate the morale of his subjects, particularly within the new army he was amassing. Nightingale, a witch of potent abilities, found herself inexplicably drawn to Roland's charisma. During a heart-to-heart, she asked what motivated his unprecedented support for witches. "Because I believe witches make the best allies," Roland responded, his eyes ablaze with conviction. "I believe in a world where everyone deserves to live freely, and that includes witches." Nightingale was stunned, captivated by his earnestness. Breaking a lingering silence, she apologized for misleading him earlier. She explained that her community of witches had been aimless for too long, searching for a safe haven. Initially puzzled, Roland soon grasped Nightingale's implicit offer. The witches were willing to move into his domain. Thrilled, Roland welcomed the idea but emphasized a tactical approach. "We start from the border town, and we gradually marshal forces to challenge the church itself," he elaborated. Although Nightingale expressed concerns about the potential conflict with the church, Roland assured her they would not dare challenge the royal family. His grand vision was not limited to the boundaries of Grey Castle. He envisioned a harmonious kingdom where everyone, witches included, could live together. As if on cue, a tumultuous clamor of hooves split the night air. A contingent of mounted men surged toward Grey Castle, led by Gerald Wimbledon, the first prince of the realm, his face marked by a distinctive scar. Their intentions were not benign. They aimed to take the castle. However, amid their clandestine operation, they were unprepared for the shocking realities that awaited them within the fortified walls. A flare suddenly illuminated the dark sky from within the castle walls. Unfazed, he signaled his men to press on. With the sound of heavy chains clanking, the mammoth gates creaked open, giving way to the prince and his entourage. The air was palpable with tension, as he knew he was drawing closer to the throne room, the final destination of his daring quest. Stepping through the grand entrance, he was met by a delegation of ministers, their faces a blend of relief and apprehension. They bowed respectfully. Acknowledging them with a curt smile, he wasted no time. "Have the guards been replaced as per our plans?" he asked. The ministers shifted uncomfortably before confessing that there had been complications in executing the scheme. Despite the unsettling update, the prince's resolve remained intact, a testament to his unflinching determination. "Secure the entrance with all available personnel," he ordered, trusting only the 2 guards assigned to flank him personally. As he proceeded toward the royal residence, his mind was momentarily flooded by memories of his youth, innocent days spent frolicking with his younger siblings. A sudden resolve replaced his nostalgic expression, steeling him for what he was about to do, seize the throne by force. Just before he entered the chamber, an unsettling scent tinged the air, the unmistakable smell of blood. His chief minister informed him that a maid had witnessed their maneuvers and had been taken care of accordingly. This was disconcerting. His father had avoided the company of women since the queen's passing. His resolve hardened. There was no going back. With a deep inhalation, he pushed the grand door open. The metallic aroma of fresh blood overwhelmed his senses. His eyes darted around the room before settling on the royal bed. The silk sheets were stained crimson, a chilling testament to the horror that had taken place within these walls. Instinctively, he unsheathed his sword, its steel ringing in the air, ready for whatever menace awaited him. However, what he saw left him stunned. Beside the bed stood his own flesh and blood, the second prince. And sprawled in the middle of the room lay their father, a dagger driven deep into his chest, his eyes vacant and lifeless. Rage and confusion engulfed the first prince, eclipsing any rational thought. The second prince, his hands soaked in their father's blood, stood defiantly. As he tried to piece together this horrific tableau, his own brother's betrayal seared through him like molten metal. As the first prince of Grey Castle, he had prepared for many contingencies on his path to the throne. Yet, he had not prepared for this, for a reality where the enemy was not just within the walls of the castle but within his own family. And as he stood there, sword in hand but utterly bewildered, he understood that this night had irrevocably altered the destiny of the kingdom of Grey Castle. Caught in the sanguinary scene before him, the first prince of Grey Castle felt a swirl of emotions engulf him. His brother's hands were irrefutably tainted with blood, evidence that could not be denied. Anger boiled within him, branding his younger sibling, the second prince, as nothing short of demonic. In contrast, the second prince sneered, almost challenging him, as if saying that given the same set of circumstances, the first prince himself would have tread the same dark path. The first prince's mind raced, trapped in a situation he'd never anticipated. The betrayal, cunningly orchestrated by his own brother, disarmed him emotionally and strategically. Unexpectedly, the second prince revealed he had no intention of killing him. The motive behind the fratricidal act was straightforward. The second prince couldn't afford to wait half a decade to prepare for a war against their third sister, who had been amassing an army for years. This gruesome shortcut to the throne provided him an already established kingdom to fight from. Seeing a momentary lapse in his brother's composure, the first prince, fueled by rage and the need to avenge their father's murder, lunged at him. But before he could close the distance, guards swarmed in, their spears embedding deeply into his flesh. He crumbled to the floor in excruciating pain, defeated and vulnerable. Standing over him, the second prince tauntingly announced that his elder brother would face trial for the assassination of the king. Despite being pinned down by the guards, the first prince defiantly threatened to expose his brother's nefarious plans. The second prince merely chuckled and produced a small vial of potion that would render its drinker mute. His wickedness clearly knew no bounds. A despairing realization washed over the first prince. He had woefully underestimated his brother's cunning and malice. In a perverse display of ambition, the second prince expressed his intent to return to his own territory that very night. The goal? To prepare for his ascension before the news of their father's demise could spread. His words dripped with full remorse, but his eyes shimmered with unbridled ambition. Memories of their once happy childhood streamed through the first prince's mind, intensifying the betrayal's sting. The days when laughter and play filled their lives now felt like an illusory dream, shattered irrevocably. As he was hauled away, the second prince turned to his minister, affirming that their prior arrangement would hold. A sly grin crossed his face as he handed over a pill, forcing the minister to swallow it. The pill would ensure unwavering loyalty, eliminating any possibility of betrayal. Alone now, the second prince approached his father's corpse, a tumult of emotions contorting his face. A sudden flashback took him back to their father's final moments. The king had laughed chillingly upon hearing of the second prince's plans, subsequently plunging a dagger into his own chest in an inexplicable act of self-destruction. The whole episode felt surreal, and despite the immediate circumstances, the second prince was left with an unsettling feeling that something was profoundly amiss. Even as the events unfurled with unsettling rapidity, he couldn't escape a gnawing unease, a lurking doubt that perhaps he had misjudged something vital. That feeling was akin to a low hum in the back of his mind, a warning, or perhaps a prophecy, that while the throne could be seized, keeping it might entail complexities he hadn't yet fathomed. So, there he stood, in a room awash in blood, in a kingdom on the brink, with a future in sight but shadowed by imponderables. And the most disconcerting part was that amid the vile orchestration of events, he found himself questioning not just the loyalty of those around him, but the very fabric of his reality and the motives of a dead king, who in his final act, left a legacy not of clarity but of inscrutable, haunting ambiguity. Just 7 days had passed since a heavenly snowfall covered everything in a fluffy white blanket. Roland found himself in his cozy office, sipping his tea and gazing out of his window. Everything looked so peaceful. He felt grateful that the important machines down in the mines were fixed. The soldiers on the town walls were also doing a great job keeping the creepy monsters away. For a moment, Roland felt really happy and started making plans on how to make the small border town richer and better. But that feeling didn't last long. A loud alarm suddenly went off, ripping through the comm. "Carter, Roland's right-hand man, burst into the office, looking scared. "Big trouble, boss. Lots of monsters are gathering outside the north wall." At the north part of the town, soldiers were shocked to see a large group of scary creatures, ready to attack. One of those soldiers, Vainer, was gripping his weapon tightly, almost white-knuckled. He remembered joining the army for simple reasons, like getting good food. But now he was facing a battle against terrible monsters. Out of nowhere, a large ox with fiery eyes rushed at the wall. The sound of its hooves pounding the ground was so loud it made the wall shake. The soldiers couldn't even take a closer look at what happened, because suddenly wolves jumped over the wall, using the fallen ox as a stepping stone. Their leader, Axe, was quick to act. "Spears at the ready," he shouted. The soldiers knew exactly what to do. They aimed their spears at the wolves who were lunging towards them. They managed to stop most of the wolves, but one got through. Axe didn't waste a second. He pulled out his gun and shot it, making sure it was a kill shot. Amid all this, Vainer noticed something terrible. One of his soldier friends was on the ground, seriously hurt. His stomach was torn open by the claws of the wolves, and blood was pouring out. For a moment, Vainer felt paralyzed, unable to think or act. That's when Carter's voice cut through the chaos. "Stay focused, everyone. Stick to what you've been trained to do." Vainer snapped back to reality. He told a couple of his men to take the injured soldier for help, while the others prepared for the next wave of monsters. They were all doing their best, and Roland, watching from a distance, felt proud but also really worried. But then, an even stranger monster appeared. Imagine a wolf and a tortoise had a baby, a really big, scary baby with 2 wolf heads and a spiky green shell. Arrows flew through the air, bouncing off the monster's tough armor. Roland called for his Top Gun team, but even their bullets couldn't crack that shell. "Get the gunpowder, Vainer," Roland ordered. But before he could finish his sentence, the creature lunged at the wall. It started pulling the stones apart. The wall couldn't take it anymore, it was starting to break. "Everyone, move back," Roland shouted. Just as he thought the wall would collapse on him, Nightingale swooped in, pulling him to safety. A huge gap now stared back at them where the wall once stood. But Vainer was back, carrying a box with him. Axe yelled at him, "Light it up and put it under that creature." Vainer was sweating bullets, but he remembered the steps. He set the box near the creature and bolted. "Cover your heads," he screamed. Boom! The creature was no more, but they had no time to celebrate. Another group of creatures charged toward the broken wall. The soldiers were out of breath and outnumbered. Roland was desperately thinking of a plan, but things looked bad. Just then, a big, ugly boar burst through the wall of shields, sending soldiers flying through the air. Just when it seemed like the boar would finish them off, Anna appeared. Still in her maid uniform, but now wearing a witch's hat, she looked serious. Her hands moved quickly, and a huge fireball formed. She launched it at the boar. The beast screamed and thrashed as it was consumed by flames. Roland was surprised. "Anna, what are you doing here? You were supposed to be at the medical tent." Brian dropped to his knees on the muddy ground, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't keep Anna back. She insisted on coming." Anna, standing nearby, looked concerned but unapologetic. Roland had planned to first introduce the others to MANHUA and then slowly bring Anna and Nightingale into the fold. But all those plans were out the window now. "No time for that," Roland ordered, shifting gears. "Form a shield around Anna." His soldiers snapped to attention. Holding their shields high, they formed a protective circle around her. Anna began to chant and a wall of fire sprang up, reinforcing the battered wall. Seizing the moment, Roland grabbed a flintlock from Carter and took aim. A shot rang out, a demonic wolf dropped. All eyes turned to Roland. "The wall is secured," he declared, raising his hand high. "Back to your positions." A thunderous cheer erupted from the soldiers. They yelled promises to defend their town and their prince with everything they had. The mood was electric. After another grueling hour, the dust began to settle. Just one demonic wolf remained, arrows sticking out from its hide, but it fell just like the rest. Victory was theirs. From the walls, joyful cries rang out. Long live Prince Roland! His heart was full seeing his men united and triumphant. But there was one issue left, Anna. Would they see her as a demon because of her powers? To Roland's surprise, his soldiers gathered around her and bowed their heads in respect. It struck him that people fear the unknown, but that fear could turn into gratitude and trust when faced with a common enemy. He walked toward Anna to check if she was all right, but as he held her, she fainted. Her face was pale, drained. "Medic!" Roland shouted, holding her unconscious form. Miles away in a lavish palace, Princess Garcia received some unsettling news. Her father, the king, had been killed, allegedly by the treacherous first prince, who was now awaiting execution. But Garcia knew better. This had the fingerprints of the cunning second prince all over it. He was afraid of her, of the army she controlled. In that moment, Garcia realized the complexity of royal politics and the instability shaking their lands. Yet, back in the border town, Roland was coming to a similar realization, but from a different angle. He understood the value of trust, unity, and the strange magic that arises when people stand together against a common enemy. Both were unaware of each other's struggles and lessons learned that day, yet their fates were more intertwined than they could have ever imagined. But for now, Roland's main concern was the pale, unconscious witch in his arms, and Garcia was plotting her next moves in a dangerous game of royal chess. Princess Garcia sensed the urgent need for a change in strategy. She had her messengers spread the call for an emergency meeting with all her fleet captains. When they arrived, her subordinate dropped to one knee, hesitating only a moment before upgrading his address from Your Highness to Your Majesty, the Queen. Meanwhile, in the small border town, a newfound sense of peace and hope filled the air. The terrifying demonic beasts that had once tormented them seemed to have retreated. Soldiers who had been injured were back at their posts, their spirits high. Carter had even incorporated the shell of a slain beast into the town's defenses. But Roland was troubled as he walked toward Anna's room. She was still in a coma, a full week after her heroic acts had saved them all. Sitting by her bedside, Manhwa and Nightingale looked up as he entered, their faces lined with worry. Nightingale broke the news that Anna was on the verge of coming of age, a significant milestone fraught with its own dangers, especially in her comatose state. Anna's odds, Nightingale said, were not good. The room felt heavy as Nightingale recounted the dark times she'd seen, where witches like herself were treated like abominations, executed or driven into exile. She spoke of the elusive Holy Mountain, a mythic sanctuary that witches spoke of when all seemed lost. But Anna, she said, had already found her sanctuary in the love and respect of the people around her. As Roland stood by Anna's bedside, gripping her lifeless hand, memories of their shared times flooded back. The ticking clock and the chilly wind whipping against the windows heightened the sense of dread. But then, something miraculous happened. As midnight approached, Nightingale sensed a shift in the energy in the room. Roland's eyes widened, fearing the worst, that Anna was undergoing some unspeakable pain. But to everyone's shock, her face was calm. The room darkened as a candle extinguished, making the atmosphere heavy with the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. And just as suddenly, Anna's eyes opened. A radiant green flame burst into life in Anna's palm, washing the room in an eerie, yet comforting glow. Roland stared in disbelief, captivated by the mysterious flame that seemed to dance and pulse with its own life force. Anna looked at him, nodded, and then extended her hand, offering the flame to him. Cautiously, he reached out, half expecting to get burned. To his astonishment, he felt nothing, no heat, no sting. Anna's newfound power was stunning. She could control her flame's temperature, bending it to her will. Anna and Roland both knew this was remarkable. Usually, witches suffered severe consequences during their coming of age, a period of turbulent and often dangerous power development. Many didn't survive. But Anna had broken the cycle, likely because she'd used all her magic in the intense battle against the demonic beasts. This exhaustion might have prevented the usual backlash, allowing her to safely transition. Nightingale realized the profound implications of this. She pledged to share this newfound knowledge with the Witch Association, promising to come back with her sisters in arms. Roland felt uneasy about letting her leave, especially with the month of the demons still ongoing and beasts lurking in the wilderness. But Nightingale assured him the message was too important to delay. As Roland pondered all these developments, Barav burst into his office with an urgent update. An ambassador from the Chang'e stronghold had arrived with crucial news. The look on the ambassador's face was grave, and as Roland read the letter he'd been given, his own expression mirrored the ambassador's concern. The letter announced a terrible reality: the king was dead. And now, Roland's second brother, Timothy Wimbledon, had claimed the throne. Summoned back to the capital before winter's end, Roland was mired in doubt and suspicion. The death of the king and the sudden rise of Timothy all seemed far too convenient. He resolved to tread carefully, waiting for the reactions of his two sisters before making his next move. The kingdom teetered on the edge of chaos, and any wrong step could tip it into an abyss. Returning to his office, Roland felt like he was juggling too many balls in the air: Anna's miraculous awakening, Nightingale's vital mission, and now a kingdom in turmoil. He looked out of his window, lost in his thoughts. What should he do next? The snow outside seemed to reflect his internal storm. One thing was clear, though: the road ahead was fraught with peril, and he'd need all the help he could get to navigate it. He thought about Anna's miraculous flame, the promise it held, and it ignited a tiny spark of hope within him. Perhaps, just perhaps, they'd find a way to turn the tides yet. In a flurry of urgency, Roland instructed Barav to move their family and close relatives out of the capital post-haste. Together with Barav and Carter, he penned letters meant to secure safe passage for their family. They would be escorted by trustworthy men under Roland's command. But he didn't stop there. Roland also suspended the export of iron ores and initiated a recruitment drive to bolster his own forces. As he weighed his options, a realization dawned on him: this turmoil could be an opportunity in disguise. Refusing the new king's orders would most likely earn the wrath of Duke Ryan, who would consider it an act of rebellion. Yet, the same rebellion offered him a chance to seize the Chang'e stronghold, expand his territory, and gain control of its wealth and people. The possibilities excited him. His strategic mind buzzed with plans and counterplans, each pushing him closer to his ultimate goal. Meanwhile, Nightingale, also known as Veronica, arrived at a hidden valley, her path obstructed by a wall of thick vines. Leaf appeared, the white armband she wore marking the loss of two witches. As they walked deeper into the cave, Wendy ran up to Nightingale, gripping her hands tightly. She was evidently concerned for Anna, who Nightingale had promised to bring into the fold of the Witch Association. Taking the opportunity, Nightingale recounted her experiences at the border town. She shared news about Roland, the fourth prince, who offered them sanctuary. To further sway them, Nightingale divulged that Anna and Manhwa had already been saved. Yet, just as she was gaining the crowd's trust, a voice silenced her, a middle-aged witch Nightingale knew as her mentor voiced stern objections, plunging the room into a tense silence. Back at Grey Castle, Timothy was handed a high-quality crystal, its authenticity confirmed by the Holy Church. Despite this, he was plagued by an unsettling feeling. Could witches have been involved in the king's demise? Taking no chances, he ordered an immediate witch hunt throughout the capital. Suddenly, Nightingale awoke, her wrists tightly bound. Nightingale's thoughts whirled as she remembered her mentor's harsh words. This woman, who had trained her in the ways of witchcraft, had suddenly become her harshest critic. She had accused Nightingale of being naive and falling for human lies. According to the mentor, their rigorous coming-of-age tests were divine rites, set by the gods to test both their mental and physical endurance. Those who failed were, in her eyes, unworthy of reaching the holy mountain, a revered destination for all witches. Just as Nightingale was about to argue, she felt a sharp sting in her leg. A snake had bitten her, and she collapsed, weakened and vulnerable. Her mentor stood over her, clutching a locket that had drained Nightingale of her magical powers. Waving a glowing hot knife close to her throat, the mentor accused her of betrayal. Nightingale tried to reason with her. "I just want to give our sisters a choice, a chance for a better life," she protested, but her words fell on deaf ears. Her mentor, seething with rage, tossed the blueprints of the steam machine into the fire, erasing any prospect of technological progress. Just then, Wendy's scream pierced the air. Enough! Stop this! She stood by Nightingale, insisting that every witch had the right to choose their own path. The room was thick with tension, each witch hesitating, unsure of what step to take next. Wendy's plea seemed to shift the room's energy. Most witches slowly nodded, aligning themselves with her. Just as they reached an agreement, the mentor, her eyes aflame with fury, raised her knife to strike Nightingale down. Wendy wasn't having it. With a quick flick of her wrist, she summoned her powers and disarmed the mentor, shattering the magical locket and freeing Nightingale. Angry and humiliated, the mentor lunged at Wendy, snake in hand. The snake bit Wendy's arm. Reacting swiftly, Nightingale drove her own blade into her mentor, giving her and Wendy the precious seconds they needed to escape. As they ran, Wendy's arm grew increasingly numb, the snake venom was spreading. Faced with a grim choice, Nightingale had to amputate Wendy's arm to save her life. She bandaged the wound as best as she could, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. They needed to get back to the border town and find Manhwa, but Nightingale was uncertain Wendy could make it. Then, out of nowhere, a glowing figure appeared behind them. A young, bright-haired girl named Lightning, who had recently joined the Witches' Association. She floated above the ground as if defying gravity. "I believe you," she said to Nightingale. "What can we do to help?" As Nightingale looked into Lightning's eyes, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they had found an ally who could help them change the course of their lives and those of their fellow witches. It was on one of her explorations that she encountered Lightning, a young girl with a peculiar ability. With wings as vibrant as a summer sky, Lightning could fly. This extraordinary talent was just what Nightingale needed. With Wendy injured, Nightingale quickly tied her friend securely to her back, and, with a mutual nod, they both mounted Lightning. Their destination? Border Town. As the trio glided through the canvas of clouds, Nightingale, amidst the cold wind and breathtaking views, started narrating her story. It was a tale Amara hadn't expected. The sprawling city of Silverlight had once been Nightingale's home. A place of laughter, love, and family. But when she was merely 14, chaos erupted. A riot, sudden and violent, had torn her world apart, claiming the lives of her parents and leaving her and her younger brother, Hyde, in the merciless grasp of the world. Her uncle, a man they thought they could trust, offered them shelter. However, this refuge soon turned into a prison. Upon discovering Nightingale's nascent witch powers, he saw an opportunity, not a niece. The young girl was then trained, under threats against Hyde, to be a weapon. She became an assassin for the Glenn family, eliminating their rivals one by one. As the years blurred, her hopes of seeing her brother faded. But fate is unpredictable. One day, she did find Hyde, but the reunion was far from joyous. Hyde, with eyes filled with disdain, renounced Nightingale, condemning her and other witches like her. That moment was a dagger through Nightingale's heart, but it was also the moment she decided to change her fate. She not only survived the perilous coming of age for witches, but also avenged herself on her wicked uncle. Yet, life wasn't all about vengeance. Wendy entered Nightingale's life, a beacon of hope and happiness. Wendy's radiant smile, her unwavering faith, mended Nightingale's fractured soul. It was this bond that drove Nightingale to protect and save Wendy at all costs, even if it meant confronting her own kin, who had been misled by extremist beliefs against witches. Meanwhile, in a distant workshop in Border Town, Roland and Anna were engrossed, perfecting a steam machine. Their world of gears and steam was disrupted when a deafening crash resonated. Lightning, with Nightingale and Wendy, had arrived, marking the beginning of another chapter in this epic tale.